Hey everyone, welcome back to the YouTube channel. Today's video is going to be on how you could be more productive and get more things done in a month than most people can get done in potentially 2 or 3 months. And so let's just jump straight into it. Very first thing that we want to cover is looking at organization and planning ahead of time. There's a famous phrase that goes, "Those who fail to plan to fail." And that rings true, especially with whatever task you're trying to accomplish or whatever goal you're trying to set for yourself. So always you want to set your plan for the next day the night before. So right before you go to bed, think very high level what you need to accomplish in the next day and try to distill it down to like 3 or 4 specific things. And obviously I know that there's going to be like 10 minor things that you have to do, but as long as you have like that kind of high picture, high level in mind, it's going to help do wonders in terms of gearing yourself up mentally in terms of what to expect the next day. The other benefit of this is that it also just frees up mental space. You're never going to have to worry about what you have to get accomplished again because it's already down on paper. And if throughout the day, something happens, you can always just refer back to your piece of paper, whatever notes that you took as well. And so the next thing that kind of goes along into this is a phrase called eating the frog. What does this mean? This is basically just every single day, the first thing that you do has to be the hardest thing on your to-do list. And so a lot of people, what they do is they procrastinate, and what they would kind of do the easier tasks first and then save the hardest task for last. And although that might be a good way to go about it, if you do the hardest task first, everything else in your morning or your afternoon or evening gets exponentially easier, right? Like if you rank the tasks in terms of difficulty, if you do the hardest one, yes, it might take more time and mental bandwidth. And kind of to add on to this as well, the one thing that you want to do is simplify your schedule and not add more and more things to it. A lot of times people have the tendency to think that if you want to be more productive, you need to add more routines, more habits, everything like that. But that's just not the case because that just adds more complexity in your life. If you want to scale up your productivity, everything needs to be very simple and you need to focus on the least amount of things possible that drives the highest results. And so this is what's called the Pareto principle. 20% of your input will lead to 80% of your results. And so if you think about it, the most productive that you're ever going to be is like when you're in flow state and you're very focused on one thing and you get the most amount of work done in that 1 to 2 hour range that you're, doing work. And then compare it to like when you're trying to do work after you just had a big meal and you kind of have a food coma, right? You always want to figure out what is the best or like highest leverage input that will get you the most output, which is just the Pareto principle. And very simply, this kind of ties back into what I was saying earlier, is just simplify and not add onto things. There's the tendency to always try to add like more morning routines and more activities that you need to get done and more things that you need to do at the gym, or more like nutrition or more, just more things in general. And so the easiest way is to actually just simplify instead of continuously add to what you're doing, because that's just going to introduce more problems and more issues into your routine. The other thing as well is just try to get tasks done incompletely. It's a lot harder mentally to start on a task than it is to finish an incompleted task. And so if you have like 6 or 7 different tasks you have to do, it's okay to kind of bounce around and do everything and then come back to it, because it's kind of getting over that mental blockade of like, hey, this task hasn't started, right? Any new task has a very large like mental blockade that you have to go over because it feels so overwhelming. But if you're able to kind of break it down into like maybe 3 or 4 pieces, then it becomes exponentially easier, right? Like for example, if you're writing an essay, yes, that essay might be like 5 pages long, but as soon as you get started on the first page, it is so much easier to continue writing 2, 3, 4 more pages on top. It's just the first sentence or the first 10 minutes that you try to write is the hardest, and then it becomes easier. It's kind of like the rule of physics where, not to nerd out here too much, but it's like static versus kinetic friction, right? It's a lot harder to get an object moving at the very beginning, but once it starts moving, it's so much easier to continue to get it to move, which is like Newton's second law or something like that. So the very last point, especially when you're kind of planning months ahead, is to do progress checks every single week or preferably even every single day. Understand specifically what motivates you, when do you feel the most productive, what type of blockers or what type of problems you face, like what cause you to be distracted. And all those different factors are going to be different from person to person. And so if you could understand like specifically what environment, what task, maybe what people you're working with that makes you feel the most productive, you could kind of mimic that and then set up your environment, surroundings, atmosphere, everything like that forward in the future. So for me, for example, I work very well when I'm just like sitting at a desk with nothing on the table. And so I'm going to always mimic that type of environment in the future. I work best potentially in the morning before I haven't had food. And so I'm going to mimic that in the future as well. So I hope this was helpful. Definitely a lot of different things to consider, but generally speaking, if you could simplify everything down and then just take action, relentless action, and like implement on whatever the goals or tasks you had set the night before, you're going to be in a very good spot and you're going to get a lot done. It's all about just taking the first step and overcoming that first hurdle, because any task can be simplified into like very easy, like simple steps, and all you have to do is take the first step. But anyways, I hope this video was helpful. I will be posting some more videos as well. So if I have another video that has the same outfit, that's why. But yeah, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.